Hello everybody, my name is Nadia Chibiso and I have been working for a farm company more than 1 year. And today we will discuss Java and command line interface usage. First of all, let's discuss about command line. Command line interfaces are a great option if your program is primarily used by developers or if it needs to be accessed programmatically through Bash script. Today we discuss why command line arguments are useful, how to use command line arguments in Java, and discover some examples that you can use to build your own command line application. Java command line program accepts values from the command line during execution. With command line program, you don't need to use graphical user interface to interact with your program or pass different inputs into your program. Command line programs are useful if you use SSH to run commands on a remote system, or if your program is intended to be run via automation script that don't need to use graphical user interface. So I would like to summarize it and tell the advantages. We can provide any numbers of arguments using a command line argument. Information is passed as string, so we can convert it to numeric or another format easily. While launching our application, it's useful for configuration information. But first of all, we should check that our GTK is installed correctly. We can do it via command line with the following command: Java home bin javac version. If Java home points to a GTK, the output should look like javac and the version of your GDC. If Java home doesn't point to a GDC, the operation system will throw an error message and you should configure the variables. Let's see how does it work. Open command line and write Java home. So my version is 11.0.11. And now I would like to show how we can configure the variables. We need to open advanced system settings, then choose environment variables and find the Java home variable or create a new one. And then we should to variable value as GDK path. Then we need configure path. We should add a Java home bin folder. And then we should recheck that all is configured correctly. And when we have javac and version, that all's fine. Now let's create a simple example, hello, and run it. I already created the example and now open it in Notepad. In main method, we system out println of hello. But then we should to compile this program. We can do it with the command javac and the name of our source file. The Java compiler is named javac, and the javac program is unique in that it doesn't produce actual machine code. Instead, it produces something called bytecode. Unlike machine code, bytecode is not platform specific. The bytecode produced on a Windows machine is the same bytecode that is produced on a Linux machine. This means that bytecode can be run without recompiling on any platform that has a Java interpreter. You can see this diagram in the screen. And now let's compile the program. I call command line from my folder. And then I should write Java and the name of our source file, which is hello Java. If the compilation into bytecode is successful, the bytecode will be contained in a file called hello class. So we can see that hello.class is created. By default, the .class file is created in the same directory as the directory you are running the compiler from. To run this bytecode, Java interpreter is invoked in the following way. Java hello. Note that the name of Java interpreter is Java. Also note that you don't include the .class at the end of the file name when invoking the interpreter. Let's do it. We need to write Java and the name of our main class. Hello. So we can see that hello is printed. Now let's discuss applications with parameters. The command line arguments in Java allow the programmers to pass the arguments during the execution of a program. The users can pass the arguments during the execution by passing the command line arguments inside the main method. These arguments get stored as strings in a string array arg that is passed to the main function. You can see the example in the screen. And however, Java 5 introduced var args, which are arrays in sheep's clothing. Therefore, we can define our main with a string var args. You also can see it in the screen. We need to pass the arguments in a space-separated values. If an argument needs to contain spaces, the spaces must be enclosed between quotes. We can pass both strings and primitive data types as command line arguments and then convert it from string. We can check these arguments. We can check the count of arguments using args_length method. Java virtual machine stores the first command line arguments at args with 0 index, the second at args with the first index. So we can see the screen example of usages. Java command line and then the number of arguments. Now let's see the example. Open in Notepad the following code. So there are in main method we perform print the args count, and then there are loop where we print the args with their index and the value of args. Let's compile this program. Write Java and the name of source file with the extension. So we can see that args_example.class is created, and now let's call the code. Java, name of our class. Let's execute the program without any arguments to see what will happen. So the arg count is 0, like expected. Now let's write some arguments. And let's some of them will separated by several spaces. So we can see that the args count is 3 and the args is without the args are without spaces. But what if we want to write arguments where the last arguments will contain some spaces? Let's add for some argument. In this case, we should use quotas. So we can see the args count is 3 and the last argument contains spaces. Now let's see the example with numeric arguments. So in this method, we will convert string arguments to int numbers, and then we will write the sum of these for these arguments. Let's also compile this program. use Java. Java. We can see also that the class is compiled and called Java. And some arguments. The thumb is 52, so it's the right question. You could see that we use system out println to output the data to the console. But what if the user wants to input some data during application execution? Let's see how to do it. Use system in. System in is an input stream which is typically connected to keyboard input of console programs. In other words, if you start a Java application from the command line and you type something on the keyboard while the command line interface console or terminal has focus, the keyboard input can typically be read via system in from inside the Java application. However, it's only keyboard input directed to that Java application, which can be read via system in. Keyboard input for other applications cannot be read via system in. System in is not used so often since data is commonly passed to a command line Java application via command line arguments, or data can be read from files or possibly via network connection, if the application is designed for that. In application with graphical user interface, the input to the application is given via the GUI. So let's see the example. In the first line, you can see import scanner class. The main purpose of scanner class is to part primitive types and string using the regular expression. It also can be used to read input from the user in the command line. In the main method, we initialize the scanner with system in stream. Then we ask the user to enter the first number, parse first number to integer, and then we also ask the user to write the second number, parse this number, and then we print line. We made print line the sum of these arguments. Java console input. Dot class for the source file is also created. And let's execute this program. So the program asks us to write the numbers. Then we can see that the sum of this number is 67. All Java virtual machine implementation supports standard options. Run Java command in the terminal to see a list of standard options. So we can see a big list of different options which can be used in different situations for start our programs. Non-standard options start with X. These are for general purpose use and are specific to a particular implementation of JVM. You can see in the internet allowed options for your JVM version. Advanced options start with XX. You also can use Xlog option to configure or enable login with the Java virtual machine unified login framework. In this screen, you can see some of these options which we can use in future. So it's class path OCP, which specifying class path overrides any setting of the class path environment variables. If the class path option isn't used and class path isn't set, then the user class path consists of the current directory. Deep property and value, this can be used when we use Spring framework. Also, we can check version, XMS size, and the XMX specify the maximum size or the minimum size of the heap. Usually our programs use more than a single class file. Let's now see how we can compile a program with multiple classes. Imagine that we have several classes. The first class was person class, which will have field with name, constructor with name, and the person can introduce. In introduce, there are only system println hello, my name, and the name of the person. And then we have a person introduction main class. In this class, we have only main method, where we will get a name of person from the arguments. Then we will create a person with this name and ask a person to introduce. To compile several programs, we can use one of the following commands. We can use javac and then the list of classes for compiling, and we also can use javac person *java to compile all files whose file name starts with person. We also can compile all source file in the directory by command javac *java. Let's compile these programs. We will call javac, and we will compile all source files which starts from person. So you can see that there are appeared a person class and person introduction class. Then let's start the program. We need to write Java, the name of our main class, which contains the main method. It is person introduction class. And then we write the name of our person, Anna. So we can see, hello, my name is Anna. That means that the person was created and then introduction was performed. So it will be more convenient if we don't need to compile each single classes and can package all in one place. A jar or Java archive is a package file format typically used to aggregate many Java class files and associated metadata and resources such as text, images, and so on into one file to distribute application software or libraries on the Java platform. In simple words, a jar file is a file that contains a compressed version of .class files, audio files, image files, or directories. A jar file can contain one or more classes, which you have main. Each main class is the entry point of application. So a jar file can theoretically contain more than one application, but it has to contain at least one main class to be able to run. We can imagine a .jar file as a zipped file that is created by using some zip software. Even this software can be used to extract the content of a jar. So you can use them for tasks such as lossless data compression, achieving decompression, and achieve unpacking. Java archive is described by its manifest file. The manifest file is named manifest.mf and is located under the metainf directory in the jar. It's simply a list of key and value pairs called headers or attributes, grouped into sections. These headers supply metadata that helps us to describe aspects of our jar, such as the versions of packages, what application class to execute, the class path, signature materials, and much more. Manifest file is added automatically whenever we create a jar or we can specify our own manifest. A valid header must have a space between the colon and the value. Another important point is there must be a new line at the end of the file. Otherwise, the last header is ignored. At the screen, you can see a well-formed manifest file, where described manifest version created by and the main class. Now let's create a non-executable jar. Non-executable jar is simply a jar file that doesn't have a main class defined in the manifest file. So let's create. Came then from our command line. And then we'll package the file. We should add jar create file, then specify the name of our jar, non-executable. And then we should specify files for packing. It was person and person introduction. Write this file person asterisk dot class. So we can see that non-executable jar is created. Let's see what is the jar. We open it like achieve. So we can see person class and person introduction class. And also we can see meta in folder. In this folder, we can see manifest file. Let's open this file. So we can see manifest version and created by a version of GTK. But we have no main class. So we can't to run this application with Java jar command. To run an application in a non-executable jar file, we have to use cp option instead of jar to specify the jar file that contains the class file we want to execute. Write Java, then specify the class path for our executable file. Class path. Class path is our jar. And the name of our main class, which is person introduction. And also write a name of person. So we also can see, hello, my name is Anna, when we start the main class from the jar. And now let's create an executable jar in which we will specify the main class. And this jar we can start with Java jar and the name of the jar. Let's create this. So we need to write a jar, create file, and E, which means that we want to specify main method. The name of our jar will executable jar. When we specify the main class name, person introduction, and then we will specify the files for picking. Oh, sorry, I write the correct extension person.class. So we can see executable jar, and now let's open it as archive to understand what files can be present here. There are person class and person introduction class, and also folder meta-inf. And now main class contains, and now the manifest contains the main class, and main class is person introduction. So now let's start this. Java, a jar, the name of our jar file, and then the parameter. So we also can see that hello, my name is Anna is printed. And now we start jar as our application. When we use jar, we also can use different options. To see all programs, you can use the following command: jar and help. So you can see the list of main functions. In this slide, you can see one of the most important, on my view, options, which is C, which we will use to create the archive. T and list, which lists a table of contents for the archive. Update file to specify the archive file name. E or main class and the class name to specify main class in manifest, and M or big M to include the manifest information from given manifest file, or don't create a manifest file. So it was main information about Java and the command line interface usage. Do you have any questions?
Hello, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I've noticed you are using Java runtime. Can we use our own user-defined command line tools, which we can name whatever we want? Instead of Java, for example, a person command line tool, for example, without invoking Java. As far as I know, there is a third-party libraries that allow you to write your own command line tools, like from scratch, a user-defined tool. For example, you can name it person, right? And you type in person right away without typing in Java and person. So,
may I answer the question if you don't mind?
yeah, sure.
Actually, you can. This sounds very simple. You can create your own command line tools, but as I understand, the topic of this was exactly Java client to show how to work with Java from the command line. Yeah,
Oh,
of course.
yeah, sure.
From terminal. That's why we saw these Java words for all the coding.
So we have to always type in Java runtime and then our class file.
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
This
is it
question-
possible? Because I heard there are third-party libraries that allow you to create your own user-defined command line tools, right? I mean, maybe some of you guys know how one would create such a tool, like the one that runs right in the terminal, which is written in the environment variable, and you can run it from any folder. But yeah, sure. This subject of this talk is how to run the command line Java. But can we use Java to create?
It's a good question. Can we use Java to create this tool? I suppose yes, we can, but Java is not language which is specified for this task, I believe. But
Yeah,
definitely,
sure.
what you're talking about is somehow like a command line client, which still will be like wrapper from over the command line Java client. For example, if we are using Java in this case, which will do exactly the same. And yeah, it is possible to write this tool, but you also should understand that you are calling not environment variable, but tool registered in your, for example, in Windows in your box.
Does anyone have any more questions? Okay, then I think we can wrap up this session. Thank you, Dave. It was really great.